This episode of the Alpha Nerds podcast brought to you by Sponch. Sponch, don't eat it after midnight.
Welcome to the Alpha Nerds podcast, the podcast that makes you an offer you can't refuse. I'm Bart.
And I'm Pete.
And every week we talk about a TV show, movie, comic book, whatever, that begins with one letter of the alphabet, and this week is G!
G!
Gardening, Graft, Giancarlo Gianni.
Green giraffes gallivanting to Germany.
Man, all these weeks I'm going to come up with a good one. So every week, as always, we have our 5 honorable mentions, which are still good characters that deserve mentioning, but they weren't the topic that we picked for this week. So, Pete, why don't you start us off?
All right, right off the bat, I got Graveyard Book. Started as a book by Neil Gaiman, got adapted into a graphic novel. Also starts with G. Haha. And It is a really good read. He made it for kids, but it's remarkably real. I mean, there is like murder and attempted murder and monsters, and it's a really good read no matter what age you are. After that, I got Ghostbusters.
See, I've never seen the original Ghostbusters or the remakes.
Huh.
I've seen a fair amount of Ghostbusters 2, which people keep telling me is like the worst one.
You know, I actually really like Ghostbusters 2. Granted, it had its flaws, and they were pretty major, but I still love it. And I love the remake, but it was the original that won my heart, and I think introduced me to Bill Murray in the first place. So, you know, that's like, you know, that was the movie that made an impression on my childhood. And just so many quotable moments.
Yeah. I think my first Murray was Groundhog's Day.
Also starts with G. Awesome.
Yeah. But I saw like bits and pieces of that. The first movie, like, start to finish, was I think The Royal Tenenbaums, which is an amazing movie.
That is, yeah. Okay, so after that, I got Gary Gygax, one of the co-creators of Dungeons & Dragons.
Yeah.
All hail Gary Gygax. Seriously.
Like, okay, if not for, like, making D&D, for that cameo on Futurama.
Yes. Yes.
Like, props to Stephen Hawking.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Props to Stephen Hawking and Al Gore and Gary Gygax. Like, they had these, like, the kings of nerddom, except they actually got the people.
Yes. It was amazing. And it wasn't even for an important episode. It was for a 3 anthology throwaway.
It was so good, though.
It was
okay.
What was it? Tales of the... what was it? Tales of Interest. That was it.
Yes, that's right. Tales of Interest. With the Finglonger.
Yes, the Finglonger.
Oh, we shouldn't talk about that. That starts with F.
No, yeah.
Hey,
so, after Gary Gygax, I've got Game of Thrones, which just ended its 7th season, and the 8th season is supposed to start in, like, 2 years, and we're going to see some nerds go a little rabid in the meantime, because they're, like, it's supposed to be the finishing season, and there's a lot of questions that people are just itching to have answered, and I know you don't watch it at all. So,
could you hear me doing the theme in the background?
Yes.
Oh, good. Well, no, that better get through.
Let's see.
I've never seen a single episode, but I know exactly what's going on because of just reading online. Although it does... The premise of Game of Thrones is one of the more interesting ones I've seen. Because it's what happens after Happily Ever After.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, because, you know, it was after...
An evil king is overthrown.
After an evil king is overthrown, and yeah. So, it is a good example of, like, after Happily Ever After. But, one thing I do want to point out is that there's actually a graphic novel series of Game of Thrones that actually stays more loyal to the book than the TV series does. Granted, the TV series has to vary a little bit just to keep, you know, people who read the books a little on their toes. Like, in the books, they reference something terrible happening in a place called Hardhome. In the TV show, we actually get to see it. So,
cool.
And it is freaking terrible, and anybody who's seen that episode will corroborate that.
And also they have to change it because they beat out the books because not Gary Gygax, George R. R. Martin just does not publish things.
Yeah. Let's see. After that, I finally have Goonies. Classic Chris Columbus movie, also up there with Gremlins.
Yeah. Love me some Goonies. Goonies is good. I love Data.
Yeah. Oh my god. So, yeah, I mean, you can't run into anybody who's seen the movie Goonies without at least sharing a couple of references or lines or whatever. Just, hey, you guys!
See, because first time I saw that movie was like 3 or 4 years ago. Like, I saw it. I haven't seen it, like, I didn't see it when I was a kid. It was just one of those things that, like, we didn't get. Although, one of the best stories about that movie is the, like, pirate ship they kept hidden from the kids throughout the entire production.
That was awesome, yeah.
And so, when they, like, go down the slide and they come out the other side, that's the first time that's the second time they're seeing it in the film. Because the first time they see it, they went, holy! And then the director's like, no swearing!
Yeah. Oh, man. So great.
Yeah.
So, okay, what are your honorable mentions?
I have, starting off, Giorgio Moroder. Pete, do you know anything about Giorgio Moroder?
I do not. I'm sorry.
So he's a composer, a synthesizer player from Germany. And was he in Germany? No. He's from Italy. He moved to Germany. But he did the music for The French Connection and a bunch of like action movies back in the 70s, 80s.
Oh, nice.
And he was on the last Daft Punk album.
Oh.
Doing a song called Marauder.
Oh, cool.
I love that song so much. Because the beginning of the song is him just like saying like his life. Like when he used to live in Germany, he would like sleep in his car after shows at the club because he didn't want to like drive all the way back home. And like him developing that like synthesizer sound. He's like, yeah, it's awesome. Giorgio Moroder, great guy. After that, speaking of musicians, Graceland, Elvis' home.
Nice.
And so the bed at Graceland has his little TCB symbol in front of it.
Uh-huh.
So it's TCB and then the cloud and the lightning bolt behind it. Because Elvis was a huge fan of Captain Marvel.
Nice.
Captain Marvel Jr., which it wasn't one of those things that was said, but you look at all the lightning insignia he wore, the little capes, the like how he did his hair because he did it like Captain Marvel Jr. Like
that's actually
Elvis,
really awesome.
Yeah, dude, like look it up.
Total closet nerd. Fantastic.
Yeah, and now the comics just keep referencing Elvis because they're like, why
not? Great.
Yeah.
Do they have Captain Marvel being like a secret fan of Elvis?
Yes.
That's great.
But yeah, Graceland. Because we're from Vegas. We're home of the we used to have the Elvis Museum and closed when we were kids. Darn shame. But next, speaking of more singing, Gallivant, the show that came out on ABC a while ago.
Yes, you showed me an episode of that, and oh my god, so good.
It's not like... It doesn't have the best budget, you could tell, but it's like, it's an ABC show. Like, it has that, like, feel of, like, we have to be family-friendly because we're owned by Disney.
Yes, but they...
And let's just have fun with it.
They also do an excellent job of, like, sort of breaking the fourth wall, but also, like, just barely not.
Oh, no, there's one scene where a girl walks in and is like, the battle's going to happen next Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Set your DVR. And everybody in the room's like, what's a DVR? It's...
I was referring more to Cancellation Bear.
I don't think I've ever seen Cancellation
You
Bear.
never saw I'm pretty sure he was in that episode you showed me. It was like, ha, we're back. Take that, Cancellation Bear.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. But yeah, Gallivant's great. My favorite character is King Richard, played by Timothy Amundsen.
Nice.
So, Timothy Amundsen was in Psych. He was one of the detectives.
Uh-huh.
And he was in a movie called That Guy from That Thing about, like, working actors who just do a lot of jobs to, like, get by, but they're not super famous.
Yeah, I remember him.
And now he's, like, probably the most recognized from that group. He's great.
Nice.
Next, keeping with the medieval theme, I have Gawain and the Green Knight.
All right.
Which, did you ever read that legend when you were a kid?
I did not.
So, it's a King Arthur legend. Like, Knight Owen Green walks in and he says, something along the lines of, I will trade anybody in this room, like, to cut off my head, and in a year I'll cut off yours. And this one guy, Grain's like, alright, I'll cut off your head, why not? So, the guy, like, leans over on the table, Gawain takes out a sword and just lops off his head. The Green Knight picks up his head, walks out the door, and goes, well, come to my castle in a year, and then walks away.
Wow.
Yeah, and then he goes and, like, does the thing, and then is, like, forgiven by the knight. Something like that. I can't really remember how it ends. But when we had to make a castle, like, in school for, like, you had to make a castle for a thing, I made one based on that legend, and the castle was completely spray painted green.
Nice.
Yeah. And my last one is Green Lantern.
Nice. Who's your favorite Green Lantern?
Kyle Rayner.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Kyle Rayner was my first Green Lantern. That's probably why.
Yeah, mine was mine was Jon Stewart, so he's pretty much always going to be my favorite.
I don't think anybody likes Hal Jordan.
Yeah, he's a little too... I mean, granted, Jon Stewart was a former Marine, but Hal Jordan is just, like, too military.
Jon Stewart was voiced by...
Phil LaMarr. And just killed it. Because Phil LaMarr is, like, not that tall of a guy, but he sounds 8 feet tall when he does that voice. I mean, he also voiced Samurai Jack, so there you go.
Like, that dude's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's one of those, you have to play like a 13-year-old kid. Oh, hey guys, how's it going? Except he does it better than that because he gets paid.
Exactly. And yeah, he also does Hermes Conrad from Futurama, so.
Yeah. But Kyle Rayner was my Green Lantern because I had a Silver Surfer Green Lantern crossover book.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so he was a comic book artist, which I loved. I was like, oh, that's why he can make such, like, cool things. Turns out, like, in the actual ones, he just make Gundams. Like, constantly. And he actually, one of the panels, so he's fighting the Silver Surfer, and he, like, just makes a giant green wave, because he's like, Surfer, wave! Because, like, that no one else would do. He's like, this fits.
Okay.
He had a not-so-great costume, because it looked like you took one of those, the morphin things from Power Rangers, and you just shoved that on his face.
Yeah, kind of.
I will say that. The costume, like, the mask had problems, but the rest of the costume I liked.
Yeah.
And I actually fought a guy, one of his arch nemesis, kind of, was a guy that, had, schizophrenia, and the Yellow Lanterns gave him a ring, because he was just afraid of everything.
Huh.
So he wasn't like an active villain. He would just create all these terrible things. It would just destroy everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was the Green Lantern that got rid of the weakness to yellow, so I dig that.
Right on. Okay.
Because although Green Lantern... if you really want to look at some, like, garbage retconning, because Kyle Rayner became Green Lantern because Hal Jordan blew up Oa and just, like, killed all the Green Lanterns.
Yeah.
And one of the Guardians that survived went to Earth, saw Kyle Rayner, was like, he'll do. And, like, that's what they say in the comic. Like, that's not me just being, like, meh about it, but no, he goes, like, you'll do, and just gives it to him. So, it doesn't tell him how to use it, doesn't tell him anything. Just like, here, take this. I gotta go now. But,
man.
You stay safe. Also, this guy called Hal Jordan, he's gonna try to kill you. A lot.
Oh, man, that's some... That's some bad writing.
Yeah. So that's my 5.
Right on. Okay, so, well, I guess I'll kick off today's, like, actual talk with my movie that I watched this week, Goodfellas.
Yeah!
So, Goodfellas. This movie was made in 1990, directed by Martin Scorsese, and, you know, Scorsese's work is always, like, memorable. So...
Yeah. He's one of the new Hollywood directors.
Yeah.
Along with, like, Spielberg, Lucas, Francis Ford Coppola. Dennis Hopper is actually in that list.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of really awesome things in this movie, and I wish I had time to talk about all of them. But, you know, we gotta keep this down to an hour. Anyway, so this movie stars Joe Pesci, Ray Liotta, and Robert De Niro. And they absolutely kill it. I mean, they inhabit the parts so well that you forget that you're actually watching a movie. Like, they just make themselves so believable in these parts.
Oh, yeah.
So...
Like...
Go ahead.
So, what's Goodfellas based on?
So, Goodfellas is based on sort of the rise and fall of this gangster named Henry Hill, specifically between the years of 1955 and 1980. And...
Who was an actual guy.
Yeah. Yeah, he was an actual guy. And it's actually based on the novel called Wise Guy, written by Nicholas Pileggi. And when the movie was first being made, Martin Scorsese wanted to call the movie Wise Guy, but, you know, they just kind of decided, like, we should probably give it some other name or something like that. So they're like, what's a word for, like, a made man? And it's like, oh, he's a good fella. It's like, okay, so we'll call it Goodfellas.
Huh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, you know, when they actually explain that in the movie, it's like, when you're a made man, you're basically saying, hey, I know this guy. He's all right. He's genuine. He's a good fella. Good fella.
Ah.
So, this movie also got nominated for a lot of Academy Awards. Joe Pesci won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, he totally deserved that.
So, the whole movie is basically narrated by Ray Liotta as Henry Hill, and he's basically like kind of talking you through a life story sort of context. And
it's even though it's like over voice narration, I absolutely love it because it doesn't really pull you out of the film.
Yeah, because he's basically narrating things as they happen, or he's basically just giving supplemental information. Like it shows him as a kid in 1955 saying, all I ever wanted when I was young was to be a gangster. And, you know, he would basically, like, it would show him looking across the street where, you know, there was this sort of, you know, legitimate business in big-ass quotes where, you know, mobsters would just kind of hang out and smoke and get their hair cut, whatever. Or no, I think it was a deli? Either way.
I can't remember. And it don't matter.
Anyway, so Henry basically works as sort of a valet for these guys when he's, I think he was 16, maybe 14. Anyway, he works as a valet, like, you know, people just pull up, they toss him the keys to their car, he goes and parks it somewhere, and, you know, he's making crazy amounts of money, like money that he never thought he would see at that age, and then, you know, he starts getting in good with the family. Well, the crime family. And
yeah.
Then, you know, he starts actually working for Paulie Cicero. Like, you know, Paulie's his nickname. But, yeah, so Paul Cicero, also actual guy. And, you know, he starts getting in good with the family and everything. He joins with his friend Tommy, who's played by Joe Pesci, and you definitely see like a real kind of shift between Henry and Tommy, because Henry was, he was half Italian, half Irish, but Tommy was 100% Italian. So
yeah.
there's that like cultural barrier, because back then, during the days of mobsters, you couldn't really be a made man unless your bloodlines were 100% Italian, specifically Sicilian.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's like sort of that, like, I don't want to say glass ceiling, because that's like...
Well, but it is racism. You're not Italian. You can't be a full member of our mob, which is, I think, more or less how the mob deals with it today.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So, you know,
one of those exceptions in real life was Al Capone, the Chicago outfit. He just hired anybody.
Yeah. So, Henry works for Paulie and, you know, just, like, sort of doing these, like, little odd jobs, you know, making some dead-end scratch here and there. And he ends up getting pinched. And they say pinched, but, you know, he gets caught by the cops basically selling loose cigarettes. And, you know, he gets brought to court and everything. He doesn't say a word. And by the time he's acquitted, like, the entire crime family is there, like, waiting for him, and they're all patting him on the back. It's like, yeah, you popped the cherry. And they're just all so proud of him for, like, well, not that he got caught, because, like, they say, like, everybody gets caught, but he didn't rat out the family. He didn't say anything to the detectives. Like, he was just like,
he didn't say nothing
to nobody. So, you know, that's when, you know, they think, like, okay, yeah, we can, I feel like we can trust this kid, because this was, like, this kid was, like, 16 and brought into court, where most people would, like, just fold under that kind of pressure, but he's just like, fuck you. So, then, let's see. Yeah, a few years go by, and, you know, like, the little junior mobsters are all getting their wings and everything like that. Tommy, played by Joe Pesci, gets into this scene with, who is it? Billy Batts, old-time mobster, just got out of prison, and, you know, knows Tommy from, like, when Tommy was a little kid, and brings up the fact that he worked as a shoe shine boy when he was little.
Whoa, you're skipping my favorite scene.
Oh, which one's that?
It's the one where he's, it's when he's, like, set up, and he's set up as a mobster, and they go to the bar, and it, like, scans throughout the room, and it's like, you got this guy who's named Tommy 2 times, because he says everything 2 times.
I'm gonna go get the paper. Get the paper.
Yeah, and, like, all the different, like, quirks of all the different, like, gangsters. It's like a Dick Tracy setup.
It really is. And, like...
And then that's one of the best lines in the movie comes in that scene, you think I'm funny?
Oh, yes.
Funny how?
Yes, that's when Tommy tries to fake out Henry, and, you know, he's just doing the whole, like, you think I'm funny? Funny how? Am I a clown? Do I amuse you? It's like, you're funny. You say funny things. And he's just, like, dead quiet throughout the entire restaurant between these two guys. It's like, no, tell me how I'm fucking funny. And then, you know, just like that real tension where you think that Joe Pesci is just going to go apeshit on somebody. And...
Pause. That was an awesome Joe Pesci. Continue.
So, then, like, after that awkward, that tense beat, Henry just goes, "Fuck you!" And everybody just, like, busts out laughing. Tommy's just like, I fucking almost had him. Why? Why did you guys laugh?
Oh, gosh. Okay, so Billy Batts just got out of prison.
Yeah, Billy Batts just got out of prison. And, you know, he works for a rival crime family. So, you know, he's a made man, but he's from another family. So there's, like, a little bit of rivalry there, but, you know, Billy Batts is a made man. He is supposed to be untouchable. Like, nobody can fuck with him, but he can fuck with everybody. That's how they explain it in the movie. So, he is just annoying the shit out of Tommy by reminding him that he used to be a shoe shine boy. And, you know, that comes with the line from the movie, "Now go get your fucking shine box!" And, oh my god, Joe Pesci absolutely loses it, gets, like, escorted out of the bar, you know, just to, like, calm everything down. That doesn't really work because a little bit later, he comes back and he, Henry, and Jimmy, who's played by Robert De Niro, all kill Billy Batts. Like, they just beat him to death. Well, not to death, but basically mortally wounded. They stuff him in a car, and then they drive him out to get buried, and then they find out that he's still alive in the trunk, and then they stab him and shoot him a whole bunch. So, yeah. So they have to hide the body because, like, oh shit, we just killed a made man. Like, this isn't supposed to be how it's done. If you want to kill a made man, you gotta, like, present a case. You have to sit down with the heads of the families and be like, this guy did this, and I think he should die. And then you gotta get permission, and then you gotta kill him. Right. But, no, you're not supposed to just, like, lose your shit and just kill somebody. That's not how the family works. So,
So Billy Bats is buried.
Yeah, Billy Bats is buried.
Which is Billy's scene before or after the scene with Spider?
That was after. That was before the scene.
Okay.
So Tommy becomes like more and more unhinged as time goes on. Ends up basically just killing anybody who gives him shit. He's talking shit to this like new kid who is like his whole job is getting people their drinks while they're playing cards. And his nickname is Spider. And so, you know, he takes a joke too far and starts like shooting the ground around this kid's feet and BAP! Just shoots him in the foot. And then cut to a couple of days later when he's got this big ass cast on his foot and, you know, Tommy's like still ripping into him like, you're probably just milking it for sympathy, huh? And then Spider just goes like, fuck you, no, he goes, go fuck yourself, Tommy. And then everybody at the
table. Do you hear this guy? Do you hear what this guy said to Tommy? Do you hear what he said to Tommy? Come here, Spider.
Everybody's like, oh, shit. Oh, I fucking love this kid. And then, you know, he's basically like, what? Tommy, you're going to let him get away with that? And, you know, Tommy does not let him get away with that. He shoots him like 3 times in the chest.
I just love, because Robert De Niro goes from, like, joking with Spider to instantly, like, look what you did. Look at the mess I gotta clean up. You know you're digging the hole for this one.
And then Tommy's like, fuck, fine, I'll dig the fucking hole. Like, it's the first fucking hole I ever dug. I'll dig the fucking hole. Anyway, so then we get to, okay, so they, by they, I mean, I believe it was Henry and Jimmy. They get sent to Florida to basically muscle this guy out of extortion money. And they have to go to some pretty extreme lengths to do this because they can't, like, well, they start off just beating the shit out of him. Then they almost throw him into the lion pen at the Tampa City Zoo. And then he's like, all right, fine, I'll get you your money. But turns out his sister is a typist who works for the FBI. So all the people associated with Henry and Jimmy, they all go to prison. And then sorry. Trying to say all this stuff in one breath. So so while in prison, first of all, they're living like kings in prison because they're super well connected. And you know, they're still trying to make money. Henry starts moving drugs in prison. And this starts a very slippery slope throughout the rest of the movie. When they get out of prison, Paulie basically pulls him aside, you know, as the boss / father figure and says, like, says it without saying it, like, don't let me catch you with that garbage. All right? You move that shit, you're fucking dead to me. And he's like, all right, fine. Fine, yeah, whatever. And then, you know, very next scene, it's like, so let's move some drugs. So they do that, and it becomes very profitable. And then it starts getting into the drug use, etc. But they're all doing this behind Paulie's back. So they're, like, sort of forming this, like, little splinter family off to the side. And, you know, they're all like, you know, if Paulie ever finds out about this, you know, not only is he gonna, like, disavow us from the family, he's gonna send people to kill us. And they're like, yeah, but the money's really awesome. So they're like, all right, let's do this. They end up getting like a nice little group together, and then they pull off what came to be known as the, and I still can't pronounce this right, the Lufthansa heist. Yeah. 1978, they basically stole a shitload of money and jewelry off of this cargo plane in the amount of $5.875 million, and that's back then money. Today, by today's standards, would amount to $21.6 million. Fucking ching. So this heist actually became the inspiration for two additional films, one called The $10 Million Getaway, and the other called The Big Heist. So, yeah, there's that. So, yeah. Then...
Okay, another one of my favorite scenes, because you're talking about the drug use spiraling out of control. So, Henry's using drugs, his wife's using drugs, and there's a scene where Henry wakes up and his wife has a gun pointed straight at his face, but it's not shot from the side where you can see both of them. It's just Henry's point of view with the barrel right in front of the camera. She's like, why do you gotta cheat on me? Why do you gotta do all this stuff? He's like, honey, you gotta calm down. Just trying to calm her down.
Yeah, it's
so
amazing.
Good.
It was really well shot, that scene. So...
Yeah, and then, like, the view of him, and then as soon as he gets the gun away from her, it just flips to, like, what's the matter with you? Why'd you point a gun at me?
Pretty much, and then he points it right back at her. It's like, how's it feel? Huh? How's it fucking feel? So, yeah, not the best home life, and these schmucks have 3 kids together. So, good luck with that.
Right.
So, after, the drugs start, it pays for a really good lifestyle and everything like that, but eventually they get, caught for moving these drugs by the narcotics police, the narcs. And then, let's see. Yeah, so in 1978, Henry gets paroled, and basically, like, he has to come back to the family, and the whole hat in hand thing, like, I'm really sorry, I'm clean now, you can trust me again. And then everybody in the family's like, fuck nope. And like, even Paulie, the guy who's been a father figure to him through everything, is like, take this money. Gave him $3,200 and said, like, take this money, I don't ever want to see you again. And it's like, boom, you're out of the family. You're done. You're cut off. So he basically goes out and, they meets up with Jimmy. Jimmy did not go to prison, but he basically, like, tells him, like, hey, you can still work for me if you want. But then he's like, it starts a really interesting monologue from Henry's perspective, where it's like, when you're a top guy, you don't see the hits coming. They don't come from people that just pull their guns out at you. They come from people smiling at you, people that you know and people that you love, and they always do it when they know you're at your most vulnerable. And of course, this is when he's at his most vulnerable. And so he meets up with Jimmy to talk about, like, a job that he needs doing. And this is actually a really interesting shot at the diner, because outside the window, you can actually see the background closing in. Yeah. Oh, cool. And this is actually done by, like, moving the camera away from the subject, but zooming in. So the people stay exactly where they are, but the background seems to get closer. It's really cool. So then, Henry basically gets wise that, like, shit, they're gonna kill me. There's no way they're gonna let me leave. So he sells out everybody, goes into witness protection, and when they're doing the court proceedings, when he's basically, selling everybody out, that's when it comes to the point where this is when he shows that he's telling the story. So the whole movie, every time you hear the narration, it's basically just from him on the witness stand, which is really cool. So it gives you a good framing device as to, like, why he's been telling you all this stuff. So then, the movie basically ends, doesn't end well for the mobsters, ends well for the asshole that sold everybody out. you're
Well, no, it doesn't end well for him. Well, he's alive, though. Well, you missed, there's a part where he gets a call from Jimmy saying, like, they got Tommy. He's like, what do you mean they got Tommy? He's like, they got Tommy because they found out about
Oh,
Billy
yeah.
Bats.
Yeah, so Tommy got executed in retribution for Billy Bats, and they, like, lured him in saying that he was going to be made. So they were like, come in, we're going to, like, have the, like, basically little ceremony thing where, the patriarch of the family accepts you as his own son. And then instead, nobody's in the room, and, you just see Joe Pesci like, oh, fuck, and then, BAP! His head just gets ripped open by a bullet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that happened... when did that happen?
That happens before the helicopter scene where everything's coming apart?
Yeah, so... Yeah, there's one scene where it was the day that Henry got arrested by the narcotics officers, and the whole day he's paranoid that, like, he's seeing a helicopter following him. And...
Because he's going through withdrawals and he's losing his mind.
And so, yeah, he basically fingers... he sells out everybody that he ever did business with. Paulie Cicero dies in prison. Jimmy I think he was up for parole in 2004. But I didn't hear whether or not, I didn't find out whether or not he actually got out, but whatever. He was 78 in 2004. So yeah.
Oh, jeez.
So Henry avoids that. He goes into witness protection, lives a quiet life without all the wonderful things that mob family life afforded him, and he just ends the movie by saying, like, now I get to live a normal life, now I get a normal life where I get to live like a schnook. And that's it.
Well, no, the last scene of the movie is a reference to, I think, the old Scarface scene, the Scarface to Little Caesar, where it cuts from, like, a scene of Henry on his front porch wearing a white shirt, like khaki pants, to dark alleyway with Joe Pesci and a gun just shooting at the camera. Bah, 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 bah.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, there's that. So...
That movie's so good.
It really is.
The scene where, like, they're trying to get rid of the drugs and flush them down the toilet, and just everybody screaming is amazing. Yeah,
it really is. Okay, so what's your G subject for this one?
So I'm keeping with the theme of mobsters. My G is Godfather.
Woo!
The Godfather. So made in 1972. And I have 4 trivia questions for you.
Okay.
What is Don Corleone's first name?
Vito.
A wrapped fish is what kind of message?
So-and-so sleeps with the fishes.
What do you leave?
What do you leave?
What do you leave?
Oh, one of his shoes?
No. You leave
his
the
coat.
gun, you take the cannolis.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant for the fish message.
Yeah. What do you leave? What do you take? You leave the gun, take the cannolis.
Yeah.
So, Goodfellas, pretty much everything after this movie owes stuff to this movie. Because Godfather was the most Italian mobster movie there had ever been at the time. Not ever since. Well, maybe ever since. But it is super Italian. It is. Because think about it, like back in the 50s, like if you had a gangster film, it was like Edward G. Robinson just, say, blah, 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 blah. Like I only found 2 like before that really like had to do with Italians. One was Mean Streets, which was directed by Scorsese.
Yeah.
And the other one was Little Caesar. Although, even though Little Caesar was like based on, I think he was based on another mobster that was a real guy. I think it was Masseria. It wasn't super Italian. Like, it wasn't talking about making spaghetti sauce and having the music, and, like, Goodfellas is super Italian. But having Italy associated with mobster films came from Godfather.
Yeah.
stuff that it's what do you call it? Stuff that cops it. Sopranos. Sopranos
Oh,
soup.
God.
Sopranos takes probably more from Goodfellas, but you can't have Sopranos without Godfather. The Long Halloween.
Yes. Oh, my
book,
goodness. Yeah.
because that also takes some Goodfellas in this.
Yeah.
The movie Mafia. Did you ever see that?
No.
It's a spoof film from like the 90s where Jeff Bridges plays the Godfather and Jay Moore plays like Michael, essentially.
Oh, okay.
It's so dumb. It's super dumb. And The Simpsons, the mobsters from that, Fat Tony.
Oh, yes.
Fat Tony would not exist without the Godfather.
Absolutely not.
Let me play you the world's smallest violin. Wait a minute, I have a violin. So this film is based on a book by Mario Puzo. And
Yes.
the book's rights, I think, got bought by Frank Sinatra. And Frank Sinatra didn't want the book made because there's a character in here who's kind of a whiny singer who's involved with the mob. And for some reason, Frank Sinatra didn't want to get out.
I can't imagine why.
Me neither. So Mario Puzo writes the books. He wasn't like... So Goodfellas is based on a book by a former mobster. Mario Puzo wasn't. He just did research.
Mm-hmm.
It got seen by a guy named Robert Evans, who was a producer at Paramount at the time.
Yes, Robert Evans, also a.k.a. Kid Notorious for a while.
Yeah, from that TV show that he had on Comedy Central. But, like, that guy really wanted this movie to make. Like, one of the things he said was, I want them to smell the spaghetti. And, bro, I can smell the spaghetti.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a good film, and it's, like, super, super, like, cultural and Italian. So Robert Evans wanted it made. And Robert Evans is, like, trying to figure out where to put people, and, like, they're going through the casting and stuff. And Mario Puzo is, like, the only person that can play Don Corleone is Marlon Brando. And Robert Evans is like, okay, I'm going to need somebody else because there's no way this studio is going to do this. And then he's like, no. The only person that can pull this off is Brando. He's like, I mean, no. And the director, because they already attached Francis Ford Coppola, who didn't do much. He did a couple like smaller films before this.
Yeah.
But he wrote Patton.
Yeah.
So he had it in him, but this was his first like bigger budget film. So he goes up to Francis Ford Coppola and he's like, okay, and Robert Evans made a video that used to be online. Now it's part of his like biography documentary called The Kid Stays in the Picture. Where he basically showed like a clip from Love Story, and he's like, so we're making this film called The Godfather. It's based on a book just like Love Story. Love Story was a hugely successful movie back in the 70s that did not hold up at all. It's the origin of love means never having to say you're sorry. Bull crap.
Yeah. Love is like 80% saying you're sorry.
Yeah, that's accurate. But so he made this thing being like, and he shot it on one of the sets because one of the first things he says in the clip that you can't find online, which is really annoying, is this isn't my office. My office is much smaller than this. This is a set for one of our films. He's like, Paramount makes the best pictures in the business. Paramount works with the authors to try to get the best product that we possibly can. And if we cast Marlon Brando, we're going to have the best film possible. So Paramount says, okay, you can cast Brando, but he's got to submit an audition tape, and he's got to do, like, he doesn't get paid up front. And if we go over budget, it comes out of his pocket. Because Brandon was notoriously hard to work with. So instead of like telling him, hey, you have to submit an audition tape, what Francis Ford Coppola did was, hey, I'm going to go to your house and like do this thing. He's like, okay. So they go to the house, and Brando at this point has like long blonde hair, like the balding on top.
Wow.
So he takes it, he puts it in a bun, takes out black shoe polish and like puts it on his hair to make it look black, rolls up Kleenexes and sticks them in his mouth to get that thing, to get the kind of like thing that it needed.
Huh.
And does the whole tape. And then when they show it to Bruce is like, what? No, that's not Brando. Because he looks so much older.
Huh.
As that. Yeah, and then they put Brando in the film. He got to do everybody else. Like, the movie's just outstanding. But it was Robert Evans working behind the scene, pushing for, we need to make this the way we need to make it.
Nice.
Such a good film. So the film opens up on the wedding of... Actually, the film opens up... First line of the film is a man who's talking to Corleone. It says, I believe in America. I believe in being a good American. And he goes on the speech saying how his daughter was... Her boyfriend took him out with another man, and they got her drunk and then tried to take advantage of her, and she said no. And then they ended up beating her, breaking her nose and breaking her face and all that. And she'll never look again, and I ask you a favor. And Corleone just tells him, like, this is the first time you come to me. Why did you go to the police before you went to me? Why? You never pay me respect. You've never even asked me over for coffee, even though my wife is the godmother of your child. You never even called me Godfather. Like, and then it eventually comes to, I do you this favor. I do you this favor knowing that I will ask a favor of you in the future. And you'll not be able to refuse that favor. And thank you, Godfather. And that's one of the things they mentioned, is like no Sicilian can refuse a request on the day of his daughter's wedding.
Yeah.
And the next dude that comes in is one of the best dudes in the film. He's a big, huge gangster called Luca Brasi.
Yes.
And Luca Brasi, the actor, was not an actor. The actor was a dude who, like, worked with... Because when they made this film, they had to make an agreement with the Italian Cultural League, i.e. the mob. Because they needed unions and stuff to get it made. So they have to deal with the league. And one of the dudes that was with the league was the guy who played Lucas Brasi. He was 6'6". He was this giant, like, wrestler guy.
Yeah.
And they're like, we need you.
They made him Corleone's, like, main enforcer.
Yeah, they're like, we need you for this film. And they're like, yeah, that works. And so there's a scene where he's outside practicing what he's going to say. That was just him practicing his lines.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that was awesome.
And then he goes in, and then he talks to... In the movie, it is this enforcer talking to Don Corleone. And he's nervous, and he's shaking, and he stops and doesn't say what he should have said. And is like, on this day, the day of your daughter's... On the day of your daughter's wedding. And it's so good, because the guy's just so nervous talking to the Don of the mob. He should be nervous. And in real life, it is this incredibly scared, not actor being like, you're Marlon Brando. You're Marlon Brando. And that's why I forgot his lines. And the film is full of stuff like that, where it's little stuff that, like, leave the gun was in the script, or was in the book. Take the cannolis was not.
Huh.
Yeah. Like, so good. So the film goes from... First act is the wedding, which leads to another rival mob. Well, it's a guy called Salazzo. He's called the Turk, who is working with a group called the Tatalias, and the Tatalias have Don Corleone shot.
Okay, so trivia for you: what are the main families?
Genovese. Frick, why do I forget this? It used to be Luciano. They changed the name. No, Genovese changed to Luciano. Gambino. And then I'm out.
Okay, so there's also the Strachis. There's the... Damn, now I'm forgetting it. Cunios. Tatalias.
Wait, are you talking about in the film or in real life?
In the film.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't know anybody in the film. There's the Brazzini family, there's the Corleones, there's the Tatalias. Yeah. But yeah, no, I thought you were talking about it in real life. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
The Gambino crime family, and they started the commission. Anyways, doesn't matter. So it goes from the shooting of the Godfather. They are trying to spy on the Tatalias, so they send Luca Brasi over there to try to. He's like, I'm unhappy with the decisions that the Corleones have made. I want to go with you. They see right through it, and they just choke him out. Which again, for a dude who is not,
they don't just choke him out. They stab his hand and then start choking him.
Yeah. Which, again, for a dude who is not an actor, that scene is so good.
Yes, it really is.
Because that guy's just like... So good. Oh, gosh.
I could hear your eyes bulging out.
Right, it's the bulging of the eyes.
Yes.
Like, that dude was just like a guy, hey, you're big, come and be in this movie. And he nails that death scene.
He really does.
So it goes from, now that the Godfather's been shot, there's a scene in the hospital where Michael has to, like, hide the body, and there's this guy who shows up who's helping him out, and he, like, tells him, like, button your coat. He, like, flips up his collar, pulls his hat down. He's like, keep your hand in your coat so it looks like you have a gun. So they look like guards outside, so that when the hitmen come, because the police took away all the guards, and then when the hitmen come, they see the guards are still there, so they leave. And the police, who are paid off by the Brazzinis, flood in. They have an argument. The police chief breaks Michael's jaw, played by Al Pacino, and then leaves. And then they throw Michael in a holding cell for the night.
Yeah.
So, thing I didn't notice the first few times I watched this, his jaw is shut for the rest of, like, until Italy. Because his jaw was supposed to be broken. So like the dinner scene, the scene where he's talking about what the plan's going to be to take out Salazzo, the scene where he's practicing with a gun, all those good scenes with Michael, he's talking with his, like, teeth together like this.
Huh.
He does a really good job. And it actually helps because it makes him look more like Brando with, like, the big, like, lower jaw.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's so good. It's one of those... This movie is full of the little touches that are just fantastic.
Nice.
So Michael comes up with the plan. They're going to hide a gun in the restaurant where they're having dinner with Salazzo. Shoot him there. And they keep telling him, like, so, you come out of the bathroom blasting. Once you're done, you put your hand to your side, drop the gun, you walk out the door. And then that's what Colenza tells him. Colenza's, like, he's another enforcer. That's what Colenza tells him. That's what Sonny tells him before he leaves. And when he's actually at the restaurant, which is the, like, blood effects in this movie are so great.
They really are. Like, damn.
Because he caps Colenza in, like, the middle of the forehead, and then the police chief is eating. He's like, what? And then he, like, shoots him in the throat, and, like, there's the blood coming out. And he's like, and, like, gets him again in the head. And when he's walking, he, like, stands there for a minute shocked. He walks out, and he doesn't put his arms to the side. He just holds it out to the side and just drops the gun.
Yeah. And also, like, first well-known instance of the double tap.
Yeah!
Because they actually point that out in the movie. It's like, twice in the head. Don't take any chances.
And he only gets Salazzo once, which is probably better because you want to get... I would have taken out the police chief first, but yeah, he got Salazzo.
Yeah.
But yeah. I think he was actually nervous to do it. Because, first off, that whole restaurant scene is 90% in Italian. And so you have no idea what they're saying. But because the acting is so good, the directing so good, you can feel the hatred coming off of Salazzo of, like, your father's an idiot. Your father doesn't get it. Your father is messing this up for everybody involved. And now there's going to be a big war because he can't just let me do what I want to do. And Michael just has to sit there and take it.
Yeah.
And so, because he's supposed to come out of the bathroom and then shoot him, and he doesn't. He, like, goes to the table. I think he was, like, nervous and didn't want to do it. And then he just keeps digging and being like, and it's all going to be his fault. And, you know, you can't protect your daddy forever. And then he's like, bah! Bah! Bah!
Yeah.
Storms out.
That was such a good scene.
First off, I haven't set the players for this movie. I should have when I first started. So, The Godfather, the title character, Don Corleone, played by Marlon Brando. Fantastic. He has 3 sons. He has Fredo, who's Freddie. He has Al Pacino, who's Michael, who's the youngest. And he has Sonny, who is pretty much the heir to the throne. Once Corleone dies, Sonny's going to take over Santino.
Yeah.
He's played by James Caan, who's a Jewish guy. And he is, I think, the beginning of the sweary mobster. of like what Goodfellas ran off with, because the movie doesn't have a lot of swearing in it until Sonny opens his mouth.
Yeah, Sonny plays like the sort of shit talker, and also first to wave a gun around sort of guy. Like he's the more like muscle speaks more than words sort of guy.
Yeah, and they shows off because James Caan's kind of like, he's not tall, but James Caan was like ripped at the time.
Yeah.
And so good. And then Don Corleone also has a daughter, whose name I can't remember, who doesn't really matter because she only shows up a few times, but it's her wedding at the beginning. And then on the opposite side, you have the different families, and then you have Salazzo. Salazzo's a drug dealer who came from Italy, who already has the manufacturing plants in Sicily, who already has the people who are growing the stuff, and he's trying to move heroin into New York.
Yeah.
So Salazzo's first act is just like going from first act, your main lead has just been shot, your other lead just killed the guy. Like, they just keep, like, so much happens in just the first act of The Godfather.
It really does. And what a lot of movies do this thing where, like, if a certain thing is seen, it denotes, like, that scene is important. And, for things like, what was it? God, The Sixth Sense, it was the color red. I think in The Godfather, it was oranges. Like, if there's an orange in a scene...
Oh, somebody's going to die? Or somebody's going to get shot? Yeah, that does work out.
I'm not sure if it's somebody gets shot. I think it's just somebody dies.
No, because there's an orange stand when Don Vito gets shot.
Yeah, but remember the Orange Grove when, heart attack?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. But yeah, that... Like, we've only gone through the first act and we are out of time, but good gosh, it's a good film. So, and the second act of the film is split between the war in New York and Michael's life in Italy. And then the third act is when Michael's taken over the family and that whole trip. If you've never seen The Godfather, I mean, you've seen The Godfather. Why are you listening to this? Go watch The Godfather again. Like, The Godfather. You don't know us.
Yeah.
But it's one of those... This film, I don't think, could ever get made today.
Yeah,
it was Oscar bait before Oscar bait was a thing.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I mean, like, there's just so many excellent scenes where it's, like, just two people talking.
Yes! Like, having... One of the things I tend to say a lot is a good movie has a scene where your good guy and your bad guy are sitting in a room having a conversation. And there's because that suspense of just like they want to kill each other but they can't is really good. It happens in The Dark Knight.
Yes.
During the interrogation scene. It happens in... Oh gosh, but...
It happens in Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows.
Yeah, there's good scenes like that. And this movie is pretty much just quiet, suspenseful, like really tense scenes.
It's just... beautiful. Like, it is a poetic mobster movie.
It's 99% on Rotten Tomatoes for a reason.
Yeah.
It's one of the... And it's directed by young dude Francis Ford Coppola.
Yes.
Who went on to direct Godfather 2 that was insanely successful. He went on to direct Apocalypse Now. And so, trivia. When he directed Apocalypse Now, like, he was like... No, this movie's going to be successful. I'm not just living off the back of The Godfather. I can tell my own story and it can still be successful. So he threw his Oscars, like, outside of his window.
Huh.
It's like, I don't need them. Because I can make my own film. And then he made Apocalypse Now and it almost killed him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And another person I didn't mention earlier is the consigliere, the second in charge of the Don's family, is a guy called Tom Hagen.
Oh my goodness.
Tom Hagen, played by Robert Duvall.
Right? Yeah.
And Robert Duvall nailed it.
Oh my god, so good. Yeah.
We could just keep talking and just being like, the whole time.
Yeah, we really film. Could. Oh man.
But like, The Godfather's a perfect film. The Godfather is what all other films want to be. And it's directed by because Francis Ford Coppola at the time, like, and still is friends with George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, and like, because they were young guys around that same time. So I want to go back to a universe. I want to find a universe where George Lucas directed this movie and Francis Ford Coppola made Star Wars.
Wow. Yeah, that would be... Huh.
Because George Lucas encouraged Francis Ford Coppola to take this, because he was like, come on, man, you should take it. Like, I mean, we need the money. Might as well. It's like, you can't afford anything else. Like, but it's weird to think of them as contemporaries. Because George Lucas doesn't really make that many films, and neither does Coppola, but the ones Coppola makes are just award-winning, like, standouts every single time. Because he's just a machine. We have to go.
We do. Yeah, so, we gotta wrap this up.
Yeah, so let's start with the wrap-up. So, Pete, Goodfellas. Why do you love it?
I love the storytelling framework of it. I love basically just like hearing the sort of storytime narration of Ray Liotta as things are happening. It makes you feel much more connected to the characters.
Yes. All right, kids. Today we're going to learn about family.
Pretty much.
What do you hate about Goodfellas? Gotta go for something.
I didn't really like. I don't know. There are some scenes that just kind of like drop your attention a little bit, and usually it's with Henry Hill's wife. Like, she has her own like little bits where she's narrating, and those scenes are just kind of like meh. They're not great.
Okay. And who is Goodfellas a good fit for?
Let's see. If you like The Godfather, you're probably gonna really like Goodfellas. If you are a fan of Pauly Shore, you're gonna love Goodfellas. If you like seeing Robert De Niro in dignified roles instead of shit like Meet the Fockers, then you're gonna like Goodfellas.
Okay, I agree with two of those. Pauly Shore?
Did I say Pauly Shore?
You said Pauly Shore!
Oh my god. What is my brain doing? If you want to see Robert De Niro in dignified roles instead of shit like Little Fockers, then you'll like Goodfellas.
Okay, gosh. Anyways, Pauly Shore. I would love to see a Pauly Shore mobster movie. Can we make that happen? Can we get $25 million?
Make you an offer you can't refuse, buddy.
Let's go, wacka guy. Okay, so go.
Okay, so Godfather. Favorite thing about it?
Just those quiet, tense moments. Just because there's so many of them, it's so good.
Right on. Least favorite thing about it?
I don't like Sonny's death scene. Like, I love everything about Sonny's death scene because Sonny gets gunned down at a
a traffic stop. Yeah,
he gets gunned down at a toll booth.
Yeah. So
I loved it until like because like he's getting shot up and then he like gets out of the car and then he's like.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that was.
It's one of those like stop hamming it up, Jimmy. Stop, Jimmy, stop.
Yeah. I mean, wow. How many times did they have to shoot him? Like, he would have died from lead poisoning alone.
Well, they shot his dad 5 times and he lived, so...
yeah, fair enough. So, who would enjoy Godfather most?
If you have eyes... if you can see, even if you can't, because even Audible, like, it's still, like, the audio tracks are all, like, those, like, light, like, Italian string instrumentals.
Yes.
So good. But yeah, that's about it for us. We are a little bit over time, but that's fine. I'd like to thank OK Go for the use of their song Here It Goes Again off the album Oh No. If you need to catch me on Twitter, it's at BeatPanelComic. Pete?
If you need to catch me on Twitter, it's at PeterKennyArt.
And do you know what you're going to do next week?
Nope.
Yeah, I don't either. H.
The letter H.
Hellboy?
Actually, that might be good. I'll figure it out tomorrow while I'm editing.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you next week.
Bye, Sponch.
Bye, Sponge.